Hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to this episode of the Momcast. I am talking to two moms about friendship. I feel like this is something that we moms can struggle with, and maybe it's not as hard as what we think. This is the probably quintessential Momcast. This was recorded around a table, me and two other moms. There is a baby in the mix, and you can hear 5 other kids in the basement yelling, playing, crying, having a good time. So yes, the audio is a little different, but I think it really shows the positive influence that we as moms can have on each other and how we can show up for each other.
Hi, I'm Meredith, and I have 4 kids, 11, 7, 3, and 7 months almost. And I have been married for 9 years this August.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I have been married going on 12 years in September. And I have 3 kids, 9, 5, and 7.
So how long have you guys known each other, and when did you meet, and how did you meet?
So interestingly enough, we actually met at a church function. The pastor had invited us over for a barbecue, my husband and my family, and we were under the impression that it was just going to be us. So that was kind of entertaining because we got there and there were about, 5 or 6 other families. So this was summer of 2019, and we're kind of new to the church, new to making friends and stuff. The pastor's wife had actually told me, hey, I have this family that I want you to meet because they have young kids like you, and I think you guys would really get along. And lo and behold, that was Jamie and her family. We did really get along. I mean, that night was pretty awkward because it was crazy being thrown into the mix with all those people and just being like, oh.
Do you have anything to add to that awkwardness?
No, that's fair. That was fair. We had more warning that there were going to be other families.
Oh.
But yeah, our middle girls are 20 days apart.
Oh, wow.
Something like that.
Okay.
So that was the whole, they wanted us to connect because at least we had one kid who was the same age and gender, and so that's always helpful. Mm-hmm. And we were one of pretty much the only families in the church that had the younger kids at the time. So
was it hard in the beginning, and maybe this started on that day that you guys met, to kind of let your guard down and let someone into your real life?
Yes and no for me. I had just gotten off of a season of losing my dad, having a new baby, and so my youngest was only 7 months at the time, and we had just moved, so I had just hit this whole shift of everything, of changing everything. I desperately needed that friendship, and so having someone who at least we knew we stood on the same ground Christian wise, and we were very clearly raising our kids in the church, so that was very helpful. But it was definitely still hard to let your guard down enough to invite people into your life, especially for me, in a very chaotic moment of, okay, sure, yeah, let's do this.
How about for you, Meredith? Was it hard, in the beginning, to let your guard down and kind of let someone into you? Because when you're raising littles, it's messy.
It definitely was. And at the time, I was still working full-time as well. So, but then 2020 happened. I became a stay-at-home mom. So that Jamie helped with kind of that adjustment period of trying to figure out who you are after, losing work, which tends to define everything you do and your schedule and all of that. So that was really helpful. And also one of the things that I find funny is Jamie had posted before we were really close. She was trying to find mom friends and had posted that she would do a meetup outside of her house. She had playground and everything. So after I met her, I was like, oh, okay, now I would be okay doing that. So I think we were both trying to figure out how we navigate motherhood and Christian motherhood.
So did either of you, because this is something that I've struggled with, fear judgment of how you did life with your family? Because we all have differences, and did you ever fear that judgment from each other about how you kept your house, or how you raised your kids, or how you kept your house?
So we both actually have dogs. Jamie and I are not dog people. Our husbands are more so the dog people. And if you have a dog who is a big dog and who is a shedder, your sense of your house being clean kind of drops drastically.
Right.
Just because fur is it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that also helped us. And then having young kids and just being able to say like, hey, we're just kind of in the thick of it. Trying to balance what we see on social media, which is all of the perfect, you know, times when the kitchen is spotless and the floor is freshly vacuumed, and just realizing that that's not real life. That's not what we have right now. We have kids and we have toys everywhere.
Right.
And we want to be, we've talked about this too, we want to be a living room family. Our kids do not spend time playing in their bedrooms because bedrooms are just for sleeping. The living room is for family time.
Right.
And so all of the toys that they want to play with, it comes out into the living room.
Right.
A blessing at times because we want to be there with our kids and spend time, but it's also hard because it's a lot.
Everything.
And you're stepping over everything.
Did you ever fear judgment?
I think so. When we became friends, I already had my 3 kids, with the youngest being a baby. Meredith was at 2 kids at the time. So I had kind of already given up on having that picture perfect house.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't going to be possible with 3 kids and a dog, especially with just moving. But there was definitely some of that of like, she goes to work. I'm a stay-at-home mom. And not sure, like, I hadn't really had many friends who had worked outside of the home in Grand Rapids. There was a very big standard of, like, a big group of us who were all stay-at-home parents. And moving here, there is not many. And it was very hard to find anybody who was at home with their kids at any point. And so it was somewhat hard for me to just be like, is she gonna be upset? Is she gonna be frustrated? Or like, if I talk about how tired I am today, is she gonna understand that? Or is she gonna go, well, I was at work today and I came home? You know, that like that stigma of that, but you know, neither of us cared.
Hard is hard, and you all have your own level of hard.
You got past that. How do you think it was that were you intentional about building a strong relationship, or how did that strong relationship, because I saw you guys at MOPS and was pretty taken by just how you care well for each other, but also like you drive together and you put cereal in baggies for each other and throw them at your kids, and like, so like, how did you build that strong relationship and show up for each other?
COVID, the pandemic, had a lot to do with that. So we became close. I mean, we met in the summer of 2019, end of the summer in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So we had a little bit of time to start our friendship, but then the pandemic hit and we were both new to the area, new to the church, living in a small town where we didn't know anyone, we don't have family. And we were able to quickly kind of we had to rely on each other because that was the closest we had.
Okay.
And Meredith was then brought at home she already works from home a lot of the time, but she was fully brought home. There was no going to the office. Both of our husbands were brought home. There was no going to the office.
Wow.
So now I remember some of the conversations with Meredith of how do you do this with your kids at home, because she just wasn't used to that yet, but she still had to teach. She was teaching other people who were going through the same thing of trying to have everybody at home.
Wow.
The pandemic definitely helped that a lot of quickly relying on one another.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing. You hear a lot of stuff that has happened because of COVID, but like that was probably a really good thing for you guys because you were thrown into the thick of things together at the same time and you were able to depend on each other.
Yeah, I also got pregnant that year. The timing of it was a huge surprise. She was very excited for me, and I really relied on that a lot because I wasn't excited because it was just so hard. It was just such a hard season, and it was so shocking. Money-wise, we weren't anywhere where we wanted to be. You know, I had to stop working, and because 2 kids in daycare is just crazy.
Right,
you know,
right.
It was COVID, so my husband was working from home full time in a brand new job that we found out on a Friday that I was pregnant, and he got it that next Monday. So it was like definitely a God timing thing. And then we had COVID, so then it was, you know, shut down, and we're all home, and everybody's terrified because, you know, nobody knew what was going on, and I was pregnant, so I'm trying to be super careful and, you know, do all the things. She and her husband ended up doing our gender reveal for us because they were like, no, we want to celebrate, we want to do this, we want, you know, and it was super fun. We just did like an outdoor thing. It was really cute. When it came time for me to have Logan, my parents had COVID and they live in Ohio, so they could not come. My husband's parents were out of town on vacation, like out of state, so they weren't around. So it was really hard because we have always talked about one of the big things with our kids is that we don't really do very many friend overnights. You're just not really sure what goes on at their houses and things like that. I had to fully be okay with, which thankfully I was, them taking Bella overnight because I didn't have anybody else to take care of her at that point. And my husband was going to be at the hospital with me, and then he was the only one that was able to be there. God definitely worked that out and timed our friendship growing to exactly where we needed it to be.
How do you handle like disagreements in the way that you parent, in the way that like your kids with each other even? Because clearly when you get kids together, there's a lot of arguments and fights, and there's like, how do you guys navigate that?
We treat it a lot like siblings for the most part, so it is some of that conversation of, you know, like, let's apologize and things like that. We haven't really ran into a time where our kids are completely distraught between each other. They're still all super young. Our oldest 2 are like the best of friends and thick as thieves when they're together, and usually take that time because they are both the oldest boys in both of their families. They take that time to kind of escape from the madness of little sisters, especially. You know, usually they do really well with getting along, working it out some of themselves. There are differences in our parenting with certain things. There are things that I do that Meredith won't do. There's things that Meredith does that I don't do. And we have a big saying in our house of different house, different rules. Meredith's kids know when they come to our house, Aunt Jamie has different rules, and my kids know Aunt Meredith has different rules. My kids have tried to move into Aunt Meredith's house. So, you know, I mean, it is what it is, and it honestly just day by day works itself out, and it's never really a big thing. I mean, our kids are constantly, when are we going to Aunt Meredith's house? When do I get to play with this person? And we haven't ran into anything crazy. And that's even with all of our kids in different schools.
Homeschool, not homeschooled? You guys, is that different?
So, funny thing is, Meredith was homeschooled growing up.
Oh, okay.
And I was so prepared to do it with Bella. I was so excited. I wanted to do an online public school that I used to teach for. I had it all set and all ready to go, had the curriculum, had all the technology, everything. And within a week, found out that the public charter school down the road from us was tuition free because it was public. I didn't realize it was a public school. My daughter's kindergarten teacher would be a lady that we were in Bible study with all summer.
Wow.
And so it just, God put all the pieces in place and was like, oh, there's a spot open. She needs to go here. And she's very social. And, you know, she needed that. Although I was very distraught because that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to homeschool. I loved my experience. I am not parenting myself.
Right.
And my daughter has different needs. And God made it abundantly clear. And my parents were very much, they would pray every single year. What does God want us to do for our kids this year? I was like, all right, well, okay, God, I guess we're jumping into this.
And you, Jamie, you homeschool?
Yeah, so we started homeschooling 2021, just after the pandemic and after everybody was back in schools. We started homeschooling, which I had never wanted to do. Never. I actually remember I don't remember exactly when it was, but there was a winter that Meredith came over and she was teaching, because Meredith's a teacher, The Mitten, the storybook The Mitten, to the kids. I laughed and I took a picture of it, and I'm pretty sure I posted it on Facebook and talked about how like she would be a great homeschool mom and like she could do this, and I never want to. So here I am homeschooling my kids, and
like a couple months later, I think.
Pretty much. I have a lot of posts on social media about how I never wanted to homeschool, and
here you are.
Here we are. God has other plans.
That's right.
But I actually rely on Meredith a lot. She grew up being homeschooled. She is a teacher. She understands where children go, and like sometimes when you need that different lesson of things. So I still get to we still get to connect on that level, even with school. And
that's cool.
You know, even with her kids in school, I get to, you know, go pick them up from school all the time, and you know, those things. And so no matter what, I mean, it's a prime example of you don't have to be just like each other to be friends and do life together. And there can be those big differences, and it still works just fine.
Like for each of you individually, what does showing up for the other look like? Can you give me like a specific example of maybe something recently that you were like, I know that I can do this and I can help, you know, Jamie with this or Meredith with this?
I know most recently I wanted to get together because I had our oldest, and the kids had not had time to play together. And so I was like, well, let's go do the school lunch program and then just play at a playground. Because, you know, walking distance to playgrounds from the schools. And then you don't have to cook because the kids aren't going to eat half of it anyway. Why bother? And she was like, oh, I have an appointment. And I was like, that's fine. I was like, just drop them off before. We'll do the lunch thing and then go to your appointment. I will, you know, take them to the playground and hang out until you come back. And she was like, that's a lot of kids. I was like, but they're good, because when they're together, they kind of just parent themselves. I mean, not that we let them parent themselves.
No, right.
But they keep track of each other because they all, like, they each have friends that they play with, and they're constant. So they have lots of fun, and it worked out.
So there's been quite a few times where I have hit a wall with things in life, and no matter like whatever was going on, and it's been even if it's just me texting and saying that this or that is going on, and she'll stop, she prays, she's there on that level. And there's been times, and I still will never forget it, where she showed up at my house, sent me to my bedroom to shower and to take a nap, and she was doing my dishes and things like that. And so it's or like, you know, the times where we drive to Momco together and are throwing cereal at one another's kids because we needed to feed them before we left, or we pack snacks. Meredith always has snacks for them on the way home from Momco.
We all know they're hangry.
No, they're
true. They're hangry when they're
Momco,
done.
They're hangry.
So,
doesn't matter that they feed them.
For us, it's you know what you're gonna do for your kid, you do for her kids. Like, it's just what happens. It's a lot of the times when we're together, I don't have 3 kids, I have 6 kids.
Right.
You know, like, you just adopt them in. It's nieces and nephews, they call it. You know, she's Aunt Meredith, I'm Aunt Jamie. It's really where we've landed.
How would you, like, if someone was worried or nervous about, like, meeting new people, how do you get past that awkwardness that we talked about in the beginning, where, like, do you get to that point where, like, how do you feel like you guys did that? Like, did you keep showing up? Like, how did it, you don't just get to this place in a short, like, usually in a short period of time. I mean, obviously it's been years.
I think part of it starts out with just God's timing. Like, I recently saw a quote that talked about God is very intentional about the relationships he puts in your life. And just being open to that timing. Because obviously, like, our first meeting, it was awkward and we didn't really click right away. You know, it wasn't something that was like, oh my goodness, she's totally going to be my bestie. Like, that's not, like, we had no idea. We're like, okay, so which kids belong to her? And like, what, you know, it just was,
right.
It was a busy, crazy time. Yeah, definitely for sure, kind of sticking it out and just being discerning. God lets you know these people they're your family. They're, you know, your non-blood family. I think that's really important. I mean, you definitely have to keep going, because I'm sure that there were times when it's been crazy. And it's just interesting because, you know, kids always just throw something in the mix, especially with so many of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth it. And friendship is worth it. And God didn't create us to do this on our own. And I think that's one of the big things that we have learned is that we have to have a village and we have to be in community. And especially with Momco, for sure, we've found a lot of that community and being able to really invest in each other and show up for each other the way that God anticipates.